Hello and welcome back to 3 News Now, everyone. It's Thursday, August 27th. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for being here to get caught up on the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app, where we break down the things that are impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. There is a lot going on in the sports world right now. One of the things we'll talk about first will be a new alliance formed by Cleveland's major professional sports teams in order to address social injustice. We'll also talk about what LeBron James specifically said after a black man was shot in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin by police officers 7 times, and his family now says that he is paralyzed from the waist down. We will also take a look at what happened last night in Major League Baseball here in Cleveland, and something that's going on in the city where the Ohio Auditor says that an aide to Mayor Frank Jackson owes the city $60,000. We'll tell you how that happened. Also, what Northeast Ohio doctors are saying about updated CDC guidelines related to testing for COVID-19. And we'll take a look at the great mask debate and whether it might actually be over when we take a look at the numbers and what's been going on with COVID-19 cases here in Northeast Ohio. First up, let's get right into it. Let's talk about our major league sports teams, our major sports teams here in Northeast Ohio, forming an alliance to address social injustice. The goal of this alliance, this is among the Cleveland baseball team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Cleveland Browns. The goal is to develop a sustainable and direct strategy to address social injustice facing the city of Cleveland and all Northeast Ohio communities. The group, together, wants to focus on improving the relationship between law enforcement and its citizens, encouraging nonpartisan voting activities, and increasing the opportunities for quality education for everyone. Now, this is coming after on Sunday, police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, shot a man named Jacob Blake, a black man, in the back 7 times, and from the video, it appears that the officers who shot him were white. He was leaning into his SUV, as you can see in the video, and his 3 children were inside. He is now in the hospital, and his father says that he is paralyzed from the waist down. The people who are making up the leadership on this alliance of our major sports teams in Ohio include, from the Cavaliers, General Manager Kobe Altman and Head Coach J.B. Bickerstaff; from the Browns, General Manager Andrew Berry and Head Coach Kevin Stefanski; and from the Tribe, President of Baseball Operations Chris Antonetti and General Manager Mike Chernoff, as well as Manager Terry Francona. Now, racial justice demonstrations have been a part of the NFL conversation for quite some time now. It was 4 years ago when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee during the national anthem while playing for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was just recently that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said that he wished he had listened earlier to Kaepernick and now supports players who want to kneel during the national anthem. Our new Browns general manager, Andrew Berry, said this: "We understand the platform our organization has to make a positive impact on these important issues. When Coach Stefanski and I began discussing how we might be able to elevate and broaden that impact by expanding the dialogue to our counterparts in Cleveland, it quickly became apparent that partnering with the other teams in our city would help our region come together so we can collectively address the problems that we've all been working to help solve independently." So a message from the Browns there saying that all the major sports teams in town have been working to solve this problem individually. It can only be better if they come together. From the Cavaliers, General Manager Kobe Altman said, "The social and economic disparity in our community reveals some ugly truths, and Coach Bickerstaff and I are honored to be at the table to address these issues with such a prominent group of our peers. We never take for granted our place in the fabric of Cleveland, and hopefully our coming together inspires others to join us." Now, in the alliance, the initial focus will be on voting, voter education, and nonpartisan voter registration. We did just learn that Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse will be a polling location for this year's November 3rd election, coming up in less than 10 weeks now. Also, the Alliance will focus on working in partnership with the community and civic leaders and minority organizations in order to address the issues that are impacting our people across those groups here in Northeast Ohio. Antonetti from the Tribe said this: "While the circumstances that highlighted the need for this partnership are disheartening, Tito, Mike, and I are excited by the opportunity to work with such a thoughtful and diverse group of leaders to identify opportunities to be a positive force for change. There is a lot of work to do, and we believe that this partnership will serve to amplify our collective impact." Speaking of a collective impact, yesterday was an interesting day in the NBA. LeBron James, the kid from Akron, he posted an emotional tweet after the shooting of Jacob Blake and after teams decided, or during while teams were deciding, not to play playoff games that were scheduled for yesterday. James tweeted an expletive. He said, "F this man, we demand change. Sick of it." And none of the 3 scheduled NBA playoff games that were to take place last night actually ended up taking place. The NBA said that those games were postponed. This was after the Milwaukee Bucks chose not to take the court against the Orlando Magic yesterday, and then the other 2 games that were scheduled followed suit. Now, according to reports, the teams had a playoff meeting, and now we have Winston barking because someone has knocked on my door, so hold on just a moment. Here's a quick hello from Winston so you can see the man making all the noise. Sorry, lay down. Okay. Now, where were we? According to reports yesterday, the teams had a meeting, the teams that were to be involved in the playoffs. And the Clippers and the Lakers expressed that they would like to walk out on the rest of the playoffs. This is according to reports, but reportedly, other teams did not agree. Now, there are 3 games scheduled today. We will have to wait to see what happens there. After Monday's game against the between the Lakers and the Trailblazers, LeBron James said this. Excuse me. Winston's heavy. I'm a little bit out of breath from picking him up, to be honest. Okay, here is what LeBron James said yesterday. I know people get tired of hearing me say it, but we are scared as Black people in America. Black men, Black women, Black kids, we are terrified. He said, if you're sitting here telling me that there was no way to subdue that gentleman or detain him or before the firing of guns, then you're sitting here, you're lying to not only me, you're lying to every African American, every Black person in the community, because we see it over and over and over. The Milwaukee Brewers and the Cincinnati Reds game were also postponed yesterday, but they both agreed not to play, so there was no forfeit. However, other baseball games did go on as scheduled yesterday. Here in Cleveland, the Tribe did take on the Minnesota Twins, and they won last night 6-3, making them 2-1 in the series. And pitcher Shane Bieber is off to an historically great start. He is now 6-0 for the season. Some are saying he's the front runner for the American League's Cy Young Award. Now, this is given to the best pitchers in Major League Baseball every year. There's one for the American League and one for the National League. And the Tribe has had 4 different pitchers win the Cy Young Award in their history. Corey Kluber won it twice, in 2014 and in 2017. If you want to see a breakdown of Bieber's performance so far, you can catch that on WKYC.com from our digital producer, Tyler Carey. The Tribe is now set to head to St. Louis on Friday to take on the Cardinals. Now some interesting news out of Cuyahoga County here. The Ohio Auditor says Mayor Frank Jackson's aide, Valarie McCall, should repay the RTA $57,000 in compensation. Now, this is all over a stipend that she was paid as a member of the RTA board. McCall is Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson's chief of communications and government affairs. So her job is to stay connected with key institutional boards. That's including the Tourism Bureau, Destination Cleveland, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, Jackson appointed McCall to the RTA board in 2006, and in that appointment, he told the RTA at the time that she should not receive any compensation for her duties. Well, RTA board members typically receive a $400 a month stipend. McCall is paid more than $130,000 a year working for the mayor, and she did not initially take that stipend, but in 2014, she asked the then board president George Dixon and then RTA general manager Joe Calabrese for the stipend and also for back pay. When those payments became publicly known in 2018, she insisted that the RTA told her that she needed to take the stipend to be in line with other board members, and that is something that RTA officials disputed. So last year, RTA stopped paying her that $400 per month stipend, and they referred the matter for investigation. Now, Ohio Auditor Keith Faber has said that McCall was appointed as an employee of the city and in seeking payment, she was effectively receiving double compensation. As for the people who approved that stipend, Dixon resigned in 2018 and later pleaded guilty to theft in office for not paying more than $100,000 in healthcare premiums. And Calabrese stepped down and later consulted for the RTA. The audit says that they and others could actually be liable for the repayment since they signed off on McCall's request. This all comes from our 3 News investigator, Mark Namick. You can read the full details on that on WKYC.com and in our WKYC app. Now, we have Northeast Ohio doctors reacting after CDC guidelines were updated to say that people exposed to the coronavirus may not necessarily need testing. Guidance that was previously on the CDC website recommended people be tested if they come in contact for someone who is positive for COVID-19. However, CDC is now saying that people who aren't experiencing symptoms do not necessarily need a test. But the website didn't say why. Now, Dr. Claudia Hoyen of University Hospital says that she was surprised when the guidelines were updated and that she believes we should be testing more people every single day. She says we do need more tests. We should be testing many more people every day for many other types of exposures. And she doesn't know why and thinks that this could potentially be related to not having enough tests. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says that the updated guidance came out of meetings with the White House Coronavirus Task Force, didn't necessarily offer any additional explanation. Experts have criticized the change, noting that asymptomatic people are believed to be able to spread COVID-19. Now, the guidance does still recommend that vulnerable close contacts get tested after potential exposure. Dr. Hoyen says she thinks it would have been more helpful for the CDC to emphasize the fact that if you have been exposed, you need to quarantine, regardless of the issue of testing. And Cleveland Clinic Dr. Gary Prokop says that the clinic hasn't been testing people who have been exposed that aren't experiencing symptoms in most cases. So that is in line with what the CDC is saying, but a little bit confusing there and them not necessarily giving us the reason behind that change. One more conversation to have before we let you go here. 3 News Investigates has looked into the fact of whether the mask debate is finally over. Where we stand right now in Ohio is that there have been more than 117,000 reported cases of COVID-19 and over 4,000 deaths now related to COVID-19. But since Governor Mike DeWine has put in place a statewide mask mandate, the caseload has dropped by 30%. And as more experts have studied the science, masks are now considered a necessity by most. But that was not the case in April when Governor Mike DeWine first tried to introduce a statewide mask mandate. The very next day, he actually shifted gears on that. But as the state's lockdown orders were lifted in May, cases spiked in June and continued to rise into July. There was a change, and on July 23rd, DeWine put that order in place requiring a mask mandate throughout the state of Ohio. Since then, we've seen a 30% drop in COVID-19 cases, down to around 930 new being reported each day. Now, if you ask Lorain County Health Commissioner David Cavell, he attributes that drop in cases to the mask mandate and also a greater public awareness and acceptance of this issue. Melanie Amato, who's a spokesperson for the Ohio Department of Health, credits the mask mandate as well for putting a dent in this caseload. Cuyahoga County Board of Health Commissioner Terry Allen, however, warns people don't grow complacent. Just because the cases are dropping doesn't mean we need to be less vigilant. He says, as we continue to move through our communities every day, it's critical that we continue to wear masks to protect ourselves and others, whether at school, work, the grocery store, or next door at the neighbor's house. Masks are essential to prevention. So we may be at a point where we have moved past the mask debate. Let me know what you think. Send me a tweet at _Stephanie Haney. What do you think about the mask mandate, knowing that cases have dropped 30% since that went into effect on July 23rd here in Ohio? That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Thursday, August 27th. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. as soon as we get those updated numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health. I'm Stephanie Haney.